Hi, everyone. My name is Margarita Lyadova, and I'm the host of the We the Women podcast. If you haven't yet, please follow us on Instagram at We the Women Media, subscribe to this YouTube channel, and connect with us on all social media platforms. We're really excited to have you be part of our community. And today, I'm super excited to interview Sofia Adler. Sofia is an astrologer, coach, and meditation guide, helping clients realize their full potential and make the most out of the lives that they live. Sofia works with their clients to help them understand their zodiac sign, how to fulfill their biggest potential, and achieve their greatest dreams, all through the lens of astrology. And I'm super excited to talk to her today because we have not had anyone on yet that deals with anything like astrology. It's a super hot topic right now. And Sofia, well, you'll get to hear throughout this podcast, is an incredibly interesting woman, super articulate about these topics, super knowledgeable, and I can't wait for her to shed light on everything astrology based. So thank you so much, Sofia, for joining us today.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, of course. Okay, enough from me. Let's hear it from you, Sofia. Please tell us about yourself. What do you do and how did you get there?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm an astrologer, I'm a coach, and I am a meditation guide. And truth be told, if you ask the younger version of me what I would be like or what I would be doing, she would be completely surprised to find out that this is the trajectory that my life has taken. I have a background in marketing. I worked in marketing strategy for a fitness boutique for about 5 years. And then after a big shift in my life, I decided to go back to graduate school. I got a master's in clinical psych and education with a concentration in mind-body practice. And during that experience of graduate school and the pivot to leave my corporate job and really study psychology and the mind, I got really fascinated with this idea that we create our reality, that it's not what happens to us that matters. It's more the way that we think about it and how we react and respond that makes all the difference. And I then from there went down the coaching path and loved it. But honestly, I always felt like something was missing. I blocked that for a really long time, truth be told, that something was missing or something was off because I was scared. And I finally got to this point where I knew that I just needed to have fun and I needed to do something that brought me joy and not continue to go after things that were a means to an end and would benefit my business. I kind of felt like I woke up, I worked out, I ate, and I worked. That felt like my life and my comfort zone. And I had always really been interested in astrology and finally decided that I was going to take a course. And the rest, honestly, is history. There's this saying that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And I feel like astrology for me was that teacher. Like it found me when I was ready. And no, I didn't set out with taking my astrology courses to become an astrologer, but I just fell in love with it. I had a real natural gift for it. And I kind of woke up one day and thought to myself, why don't I do the thing that I love and makes me happy? And I have to tell you, following that for me was the biggest gift I could have given myself, because I finally discovered what it's like when people talk about, oh, it was easy, or oh, things just flowed and evolved. I would be lying if I said that starting my own business and, my astrology business, that it doesn't take work and effort. It totally does. And though the ease with which I'm able to do these things helped me realize that I was on the right path.
That's amazing. And a comment I want to make is now you work with clients to help them realize what that is for them. It might not be astrology, it might be, I don't know, being a doctor, but that's what you're also doing in return. You're giving back in the same, cycle that you became part of. So I just think that's really, I don't know, it's like a
full circle, right?
yeah, like it definitely came full circle for you, which again just reinforces that you're on the right track for yourself. And I have so many questions for you. So, what was that transition like of saying, I'm going to leave the job that I have now and I'm going to start my own business and it's going to be about astrology? How did you make that transition? What did it take? How did you start building clients? And what did it take for you to start your own business?
Yeah, so it was definitely a leap of faith. And I'm lucky that I had the support of friends and family. And I knew, and it's in my chart, by the way, but I knew that I was meant to do something on my own. It was not without a lot of fear and a lot of tears at times. But whenever I was at my corporate job, which I learned so much from, by the way, I believe that every experience that we have brings us one step closer to where we're going. And we take pieces of information and experiences with us as we go. I just knew that something wasn't right. It just felt so deeply misaligned with what I wanted for my life. And not in the way of, I was kind of being sassy or immature and saying like, I don't want to work, like nothing like that. I always had this pull that there was something more for me out there. And, when I first started my business, it was a coaching business. It had nothing to do with astrology. But when I made the pivot to astrology, I was so scared. I was really scared that nobody was going to accept me. I was worried that people were going to think it was weird or woo-woo, or that I was throwing my business down the tubes, that I wasn't respectable, that I couldn't, I was worried that nobody would believe that it was legitimate or that I was legitimate. I was worried that people would think that I was like ruining my life, because I think there was a part of me that was afraid of that as well. But I have to tell you, once I really owned it and let go of the fear and aligned with what I would say is my truth, so really just coming to terms with the fact that I knew what was best for me more than anybody else, everybody supported me. It was a real lesson for me to realize that I was the one that was getting in my own way. And that when I was really rooted in what I believed and what I knew was best for me, in a way, everybody fell in line. I realized I was my own worst enemy.
Did you lose any people down this road or no?
I wouldn't say that I lost anybody in terms of like my personal life, family, no. And that was also really affirming for me to realize that, I had the right people in my corner supporting me. And when it came to clients or business, it didn't feel like a loss. It felt like an evolution. I think everybody can relate to the fact that we all want to grow and change, and everybody wants permission to be themselves and to do things that feel good. So I would say it was more of like a conscious parting with love and respect, both parties, rather than feeling like it was a loss or a severe cutting of ties. And I know that you asked me before about clients, and the way that I've built my business, truthfully, has been through word of mouth. I started at the beginning by giving sessions for a reduced rate. I did sessions for friends and family. I asked for referrals in exchange for some of my readings at the very beginning. And then I very much just put one foot in front of the other. My business has grown mainly by referral and continuing to put myself out there, talking about astrology on social media platforms, sending newsletters, reaching out to people in the community, seeing how we can connect. It's been a mix of like drive and action and pushing, but also a lot of receiving and trusting. And that whole receiving, trusting, letting go bit is not easy for me at all. It's something that I actively work towards. But I remember once one of my teachers said that only from space can the unexpected come in. Because when we're gripping and trying to control all the time, we're preventing other outcomes or other possibilities from coming through.
I feel like hypnotized right now. That was like hard. So for people like me who are not very educated on astrology or how to, be more in tune with your horoscope, how does one become an astrologer?
So I'd love to start by explaining what the study of astrology is, what this ancient wisdom really means. And, for many people, I think they've heard of, oh, I had an astrology session or I got my birth chart read, but it's often overlooked what an astrologer is talking about or your friend is talking about. So put really simply, astrology is the study of what's happening up there in the sky and how it affects us down here on Earth. And as an astrologer, when you book a session with me, what I'm doing is I'm pulling your birth chart. And that means that I'm going back into the records and I'm pulling up a picture of where all the planets were in the solar system at the moment that you were born. And the reason that this matters is because all of the same energy and elements that make up the planets also make up our bodies. If you believe in the Big Bang Theory, right? Everything happened all at once. So we can look to what the energy was that day when you were born, look at what the energy was in the sky, and glean information about your own energy and your own makeup. My goal with my clients is really to demystify astrology and what it all means. And going back to the chart, the reason I believe that the chart matters so much is because I believe that we're all souls and our souls choose our lives. We choose a life to learn certain lessons, to develop certain skills, and tap into certain gifts so that we can contribute to the world, so that we can make a difference, so we can fulfill our potential, kind of understand, like, what am I doing here? Why? What am I meant to do in this life? And so often I hear from people, and I felt this way too, that they just want a roadmap. Like, they want a user's manual. Please tell me what to do now. Tell me how it's all going to work, how I can make the most of this thing. And that's what your birth chart is. It is your user's manual for your life, how to make life easier by living in alignment with who you are and who you're meant to be. We spend so much time focusing on what everybody else thinks or how we're supposed to be. You heard me talking about that earlier and how that's come up in my own life. And astrology helps us figure out who we are and how to be more of that and be true to ourselves.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's very interesting. And Sofia, I know I sent you my birth chart, and I would love to hear your thoughts on anything that you gleaned from that to really apply what you just said to like a real life scenario. Because I have no idea what you might say to someone like me. By the way, for anyone tuning in, I'm a Capricorn, and I really do feel that I fit my sign to a T.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. From what I know of you, Margarita, yes, I see that Capricorn energy, to be sure. And the first thing when it comes to understanding your signs is that I would encourage you to look beyond your sun sign. So you have your sun and your moon, and then what's known as your rising. So just really briefly, your sun is your vitality, it's your life force. Some people will say it's the ego or your purpose. It's how you fit in this world, how you shine. Your sun is also what you're becoming. You think of the literal sun, the sun rises during the day, and the warmest part of the day is usually in the late afternoon because that's when the sun has had the opportunity to build, right? The heat builds. That's just like us with our own sun sign. And then your moon is your emotions, your emotional body, how you feel, your inner life, what you need, what makes you happy. And then your rising sign quite literally is the zodiac sign that was on the horizon at the moment you were born. So it's the sign associated with your first breath, from that official merging from soul to human. And if you consider that your sun sign is where you're going, it's the destination, what you're becoming, your rising sign is how you get there. It's the helper. So as you said, you are a Capricorn. And yes, your sun is in Capricorn, your moon is in Capricorn, and your rising sign is in Leo. So for listeners who aren't necessarily familiar with astrology, Capricorn is very hardworking, practical, grounded, cares a lot about systems and structures. It's very important for a Capricorn to feel like everything that they do is with integrity. And work is their comfort zone. Incredible drive, creating a plan, going after things, natural leader. So Margarita, from what I know about you and even through this podcast, that drive for work to create systems and structures, does that resonate for you? Like, how do you relate to the sign, generally speaking, and based on what I've just briefly shared so far?
Oh, I think you're spot on. And I'm somebody that I'm the only person that puts together interview guides and like best practices for people that want to go on a podcast. And if that's not the most Capricorn thing you've ever heard, I don't know what is. And I'm this way, about every element of my life. I'm super, when you say everything has to do with integrity, doing work with integrity, I'm a huge person of principle. If it's against my principles, I'm not going to do it. Even if it means I lose money or I lose in a friend or an opportunity, it's to a fault. And the other thing is, you didn't mention this, but oftentimes I read that Capricorns are stubborn, and I can definitely resonate with that. And because again, if you're so dead set on your principles, you're going to appear stubborn in that regard. But I wouldn't disagree with anything that you said.
Yeah. And another thing too that I wanted to point out for you is, so the area of your chart that your sun and your moon live in, and to be honest, 2, 4, 5 of your planets out of the 10 live in this area of your chart. They all fall within the area of your chart that has to do with personal growth and development. And this idea of becoming the best version of yourself as you can, continuing to strive to improve, to really kind of get to know and understand, like, who is Margarita? How can she make a difference in this world? How can I continue to evolve and change? And I'm curious if that feels on point for you, because I know, like, the premise of this podcast is very personal growth and development oriented, of learning from other women, of seeing how you can continue to strive and grow. You know, you started this podcast on your own. Does that aspect of your chart resonate for you?
I would say yes. I'm always trying to improve and learn new things. I literally only read nonfiction books about like leadership and negotiation and sales. Like it really is to a fault. But I think the drawback of that is sometimes one, you don't appreciate what is going on around you right now, that element of mindfulness, because you're always thinking about what's next, like what more could I be doing, and that's really taxing. Like sometimes you don't need to be doing more, sometimes you're enough, like in every element of your life. And the other thing is, for someone like me who is so, organized and system oriented, when I lose track of where I'm headed on this like journey of growth, it's really overwhelming for somebody like me. I always feel the pressure to know exactly what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it. And that's just, nobody knows. Like no person knows.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. What that then brings to mind for me is to talk about your rising sign. So as I said before, your rising sign is the helper. It's what can help you get to your sun sign, what you're becoming, if they're, used well or appropriately together. And your rising sign, as I said, is in Leo. And Leo is all about fun and joy, being courageous and brave and bold, passionate. Leo wants to be seen and celebrated. So again, not just starting your own business, not just having your own podcast, but being a kind of focal person in some ways, and letting yourself shine, but also doing the things that make you happy and bring you joy. And I'm curious, in your drive to achieve, right, and to produce, Capricorn is an earth sign. Earth signs love to have something to work on. That's kind of what they're here for. They're here to contribute to the world with something tangible. How do you incorporate what lights you up into the work that you go after?
So it's funny that you say that, because I'm convinced that I know what my purpose is. I just don't know how to get there. And actually, there was like a viral quiz where you put your birth date and time, and they tell you like your purpose on this earth. And mine was to be a performer. And I find that hilarious, because I'm convinced, like, I want to be on TV, because ever since a young age, I was a child performer. And so I'm always used to being on stage, and I love those opportunities. Like nothing made me happier than being on the dating show when I was on it, or like being interviewed for the Daily Mail when that happened, or like meeting a celebrity when that happened, and having that opportunity, like exactly what you talk about, like being celebrated or being on stage. And I think that's so Leo. Like Leo is always the
So,
life
Leo.
of the party, and like everyone knows who they are, whether it's like good or bad. Like they're always seen, they never lay low. And that's so me. And I'm convinced that like I like need to work in entertainment somehow. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm also of the belief that if that's really what it is, those opportunities somehow find their way in. Like these things that I mentioned about like the time that I was on a dating show, I never looked for that. It came to me. So I think that if I just like don't restrict myself from the opportunities, they'll come. But at the same time, I'm not like on a path to becoming an entertainer of any sort. So it's like a weird dynamic. Like I have a full-time job, people. I don't have time to be doing like castings and all this other stuff.
Well, I mean, God, I love that, because I don't know if I knew all of that about you. And I think that's the perfect example of how our chart comes to life. In many ways, I find sometimes that the elements in our chart find us, even if we don't seek them out. But what I always say to my clients is one of the greatest gifts of astrology is that it helps you realize that you make sense. The things that you're drawn to, the way that you think, the way that you feel, the way that you speak, the things that happen in your life, they make sense. You're here on purpose, and there's nothing wrong with you. So the beauty of a chart is that it can affirm the path that you're already on, or it can help you redirect and make sense of the things that aren't working. So what I would say to you if we were in a formal reading together is, yes, your gut knowing that you're supposed to be in entertainment of some kind is definitely spot on. The image that always comes to mind for me when I think of Leo is a little kid on a swing set and they're pumping their legs and they're like, look at me, look at me, look at me. That's so Leo. But to just then consider, as you continue to strive and go after your goals, just ask here is that Leo rules children. So some people that expresses that they love kids, they work with kids, they have a lot of kids, but it can also express as just being really in tune with your inner child and all the qualities of a child, right? Little kids, fun is like their number one goal. And they're not afraid to go after things and they're incredibly bold and they do things that as adults we're like, no way would I try that. And so that's something as well to think about and see how you can incorporate into your work.
Yeah, that's definitely like, I'm that friend that people call and they're like, you want to go skydiving tomorrow? I'm like, yeah, let's go. Like, I never say no. So everything that you said is so spot on to how I think about myself. I'm interested to see what path that leads me on, or if there are any ways to like adjust the path I'm already on. But this is the beauty of doing these kinds of readings, is they start to uncover those things. So this is really interesting. And I thank you so much for telling me all of this. It's been fascinating.
Oh, you're so welcome. And that's the thing too, is that each reading is like dipping a toe in the wealth of knowledge that your chart holds. So people will come back to me with a specific question or after a period of time to say, okay, how can I approach this issue based on my chart? Or what do I need to know? My background in psychology and, being a meditation guide, I incorporate all of that into the work that I do, which has been really fun.
Yeah. And I think you definitely have the most like calming demeanor. I think that if there was some kind of urgent problem and I needed to call someone to calm me down, I could definitely see you as that person.
Oh my God,
Like,
thank you. I'm so
yeah.
flattered.
It's just like someone like me that's very like on edge all the time, like that's why I appreciate this quality about you, because I'm like, wow, that's somebody that knows how to calm down. And what you said actually brings me to my next question for you. Can you tell me about like an interesting client you've had, or an interesting story about someone's evolution after working with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a client and her story is really remarkable. When I met her, she was really embodying a specific part of her chart to an extreme. So our charts also reveal all the different parts of us. And it's a question of how can we work with all of them and also take note of when one might be too heavily relied upon. And she came to me and was very used to kind of putting everybody else before her. And we talked a lot about Leo, actually, because she had a lot of Leo in her chart. And following our session, she completely changed and finally started going after the things that she loved and that were important to her. Started putting herself out there by making sense of her experience. And she's a completely different person than she was.
Have you had a lot of clients that do that, that just like make a huge adjustment? I feel like I'm somebody, I would do that shit. You tell me like,
Yeah.
you have to go and sign up, I don't know, for American Idol. I do it.
Yeah. You're like, okay, why not?
Yeah.
I think it depends. Some clients, the change is more subtle in that they just feel like they can keep going. Like it quiets the doubt or it affirms the dream that they had and they finally go after it. And then other people make huge radical changes. I think that also, depends on the chart.
Yeah, who they are
Right.
to
And
begin
who
with.
they are. Yeah. After our session, she finally started putting herself first and started a business that was in line with her passions and found great success and just felt more in alignment with who she wanted to be and who she knew that she used to be, but had lost sight of and connection to along the way.
That is fascinating. And I guess to build off of that, what are some frequently asked questions that people ask you when you work with them through these things?
So there's no question that you can't ask to kind of glean insight about from your birth chart. But the most common questions I get are work and career. So like, what am I meant to do?
From the Capricorns.
Yeah, a lot of people, and it's one of my favorite areas to focus on. A lot of people come to me for career support, whether that's changing jobs, whether that's figuring out like how to be happy in your current job, or you like it, but you don't feel like your role is right. What are you even meant to do in the world? A lot of people come to me for that. The second question I would say is relationships and love.
We haven't talked
Relationships.
about that at all. So, okay, you give me an opportunity to talk about relationships and love. I love that shit. Okay, so my question to you is this: how much does astrology matter in love and relationships? And then selfishly, I have to ask, for a Capricorn Leo, what should I be on the lookout for?
I do think that astrology is really helpful because it can help you not only better understand yourself, but better understand your partner. And if they have a better understanding of how they work and how you tick, it creates the possibility for increased communication, which we all know is key in a relationship. So it's not necessarily saying that, oh, if you're not a match astrologically, it's going to be a terrible relationship and you should just give up now. It's more saying, can somebody work with this? Relationships require commitment and work. So I was having a conversation with somebody about this the other day. To blanket statement say, oh, well, I'm a Pisces and this person's a Virgo, so we'll never match, or something like that. First of all, I want to see their full birth chart, because just knowing somebody's sun sign is not enough. And second of all, people deserve credit for being willing to show up and commit to somebody and to explore and see how they can change, for you to be willing to change, to compromise with one another, to come into a partnership where you meet each other where you are. So for you as a Capricorn, earth signs do really well together. I'm torn, to be really honest with you, when it comes to giving people like, okay, with this sign, you should look out for that person. But with all the Capricorn energy in your chart, I'm going to make it more general and say that it's somebody who really respects and understands your commitment to your work and your drive and your passion, and understands that that's a huge core part of who you are. So other earth signs could be great for you because they have that shared similarity of, or I don't want to say shared similarity, but they have that shared passion for producing things and making a difference in the world. And at the same time, though, you have to be careful, because there's also something about opposites attract. So looking for somebody who is more easygoing, maybe, to loosen you up.
No.
No?
It has never worked. It drives me up the wall. It bothers me. Like, I want somebody as organized as me, on time. So I
Okay.
really do not appreciate somebody that's like, oh, I don't know, we'll figure it out tomorrow, or like, we can plan it last minute. No, I get anxiety over it. I need somebody as organized as me and who appreciates that. I think there are two camps of people. The type A, type B is a really great way for me to think about it, where it's like some people are planners and some are not. And I need a planner.
Yeah. So to go back to your original question and kind of use this as the answer, I would say for you, with all the earth energy that you have in your chart, seeking out a Taurus or a Virgo, someone who has that shared understanding of a commitment to work and being loyal and driven and grounded, that's someone who will really support you.
The interesting thing is, I've heard Taurus before from a psychic one time.
I love it.
They also said Scorpio, and I didn't think much of it, but then I thought about the men that I've seriously dated, and all of them are Scorpios.
Ah,
Does it
interesting.
mean something?
That could make sense to me, in the sense that Scorpios are a water sign. So water is associated with sensitivity and compassion, liking to go deep with people, kind of real, true connections, very emotive, maybe sensitive. But Scorpios in particular are fiery.
Yeah, they're mean. They're mean.
No, Scorpios aren't necessarily mean, but they can be intense. So I think a Scorpio could match your Capricorn drive, but be committed to the relationship and want to go deep, and to really, Scorpios are also known for their desire to investigate and get to the bottom of things.
That's me.
Right. And yeah, that Capricorn drive of just being like, okay, I'm going to go after it. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to climb the mountain, and I'm going to move the goalposts once I get to where I thought that I wanted to be. Scorpios can match you there.
Interesting. Okay. Well, hasn't worked out for me yet, but Any Scorpios listening to this, hit a sister up. Okay. So then my question to you is like, as somebody who understands astrology really deeply, does
Mhm.
everything you do like in your life tie back to that? Do you view everything through the astrology lens, or are there moments in your life where you just shut that part off and you don't view the world that way at all?
I would say most of the time I'm thinking through the lens of astrology, but there are definitely, I think it's like 80-20. But there's
I would do that
definitely
too.
times where I
If you
shut it
have
off.
that skill,
Yeah,
that's
why not?
huge.
But there's definitely times where I shut it off because sometimes you just have to live, like and not overanalyze or overthink. But I will tell you, when I do that, I find myself being like, what's wrong with me right now? Or, right. If I'm questioning how I'm feeling or what I'm thinking or what's going on, quote unquote, in my world, it always comes back to astrology. When I plug back in, I'm like, oh yeah, duh, of course, obviously. So it's a mix, but I try and take some time off, so to speak, to like not think about it all the time.
Interesting. And for people that don't know much about astrology or don't follow closely, what do you wish they knew?
I wish that people knew that astrology is not all doom and gloom because I think that people who don't know that much about astrology and maybe follow it here and there or on social media or in the news, astrology is usually sensationalized and shared as a warning for things that are going to happen or have happened. And the reason I think that this happens is honestly because fear sells. It captivates an audience. And astrology is a tool that can help us understand when there will be periods of time that require a lot of growth or ask us to grow. Because let's face it, we all want life to be easy and comfortable and in flow. We're humans. Duh, I want that too. But the times that we learn the most and we become more self aware are from our challenges. And so astrology is really a tool that can help us see when those opportunities will arise. So if you are someone who doesn't know that much about astrology, but feel like you always hear about it in worst case scenarios, use your discernment, take it with a grain of salt, and also work with an astrologer one on one to really understand your own chart and how things affect you specifically. Because one thing that in the media might seem negative for you personally might be a really positive thing and might be a strength for you.
Random question, but I promise it's related. Do you do anything with crystals or no?
I don't do anything with crystals, but I own a lot of crystals and I love them.
So the reason I remember this at all is like maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, there was a viral set of TikToks about this one particular crystal that was so strong that if you got it, how they defined it is it like opened the floodgates on any what if scenarios in your life. So if there are unresolved things, they will get resolved with this crystal. And naturally, that's very scary. Like the example they gave was if you don't love your job and you know that you're meant to do something else, you'll get laid off. Or if you're not sure about your relationship with somebody, you'll break up. But then the reverse was also true, where it's like if you're meant to be doing something, like another opportunity will show up or you'll get a job interview. So it was both the good and the bad, but whatever it was going to come on full force. And that's super overwhelming for people. And so the TikTok trend was like all of these mostly girls crying with holding the crystal like, oh my god, all this stuff happened to me, like you guys do not get this crystal whatever you do.
Do you remember which one it was?
It starts with an M and is dark blue.
I don't know. I'm not sure. We'll have to Google.
Moldavite.
Cool.
Yeah, but it reminded me like fear sells. Why was that trending on TikTok? Because now everybody's like, what's going to happen to me if I get this crystal?
Right, exactly. And, I'll say this as well about astrology. Astrology has been around since the BC era. The Egyptians used it, Babylonians used it, Mesopotamians used it. Astrology used to be reserved for the royal and the elite because they knew that it was a really powerful wisdom that people could use to understand themselves, their lives, what was going to happen. And now it's really exciting that it's available to everyone. But for anybody who maybe doesn't know a lot about astrology and thinks, oh, it's all woo. Yeah, there's a lot of woo to it and I love it, but it's also really rooted in history and can be traced all the way back years and years and years. So there's a lot of validity to it as well.
So that brings me to my next question. What's next for you for your business? What are you excited for? Is this what you think you're going to do for the rest of your life?
Nobody can predict the future, but yeah, I really do. I finally feel like I found my thing in terms of my astrology business in particular. What I'm really excited about is I just recently received the final copy of my new About Me video, which I made as a way for people to get a better understanding of who I am, what I'm like, what it's like to work with me, what I believe. And I'm really excited about it because what I love most about my work is my ability to deeply connect with people. And it's a real honor. People really welcome me into their worlds. And so, especially, virtually, it's harder to get to know people or to meet people. And so through this video, I'm hoping that I can make people feel more at ease before booking a session with me or just get a better understanding of what I'm all about. And so in honor of that, I am releasing that video today. By the time that you all hear this, the launch date of this podcast lines up perfectly with the release of my video. And I am offering a special promo for all new clients. So new clients can book from today, the 21st, through Friday, end of day, the 26th, for a special rate of $111. And it's to celebrate both the launch of my video and also the start of Aries season. Aries season is the first sign of the zodiac, so it's the astrological new year. It's also the spring equinox. So it's this real sense of beginning and excitement, passion, drive, leadership, taking initiative. And I'm excited for spring. I don't know about anybody else. I'm excited for movement, feeling a bit more free with nicer weather, depending on where you live. And I'm excited to make a lot of new connections with new people and see how I can support them in feeling more at ease in their life and feeling like they have permission to be themselves and not feel pressure to be anybody but themselves. I am starting to dream about what some sort of group course could be like or program that I could offer. But for now, just continuing with one-on-one sessions. I also teach meditation and love coaching my clients using astrology. So we'll see. Stay tuned.
If you did a retreat, I would be the first to sign up for such a thing.
Ooh.
Like a meditation / astrology related retreat somewhere, I don't know, like Vermont.
I could do that. I like that idea.
I think it would be very good. And especially like rolling off of the COVID, stasis, people would be very eager to do something like that. And for anyone watching or tuning in, the link for the video will be in the description. So make sure to check it out. And I'm so excited that you're doing this promotion because it sounds to me like we have a further discussion to have about my
Indeed.
crazy birth chart. Okay, and that brings me to my last question for you. It's a question that I ask every speaker. It's not an area we've touched yet at all, but I'm really excited to hear your thoughts. The question is, what advice would you give to women dealing with the world as it is today?
My advice to women dealing with the world as it is today is don't be afraid to be yourself. Especially as women, I find we're often pressured to be someone else or to fit into a certain role. And I really believe that what the world needs more of is for each of us to be ourselves, to embrace the complexities of who we are. And you can do it. You can succeed by just being you. You don't have to conform to a certain expectation to be successful.
Wow, that was deep. Thank you so much for sharing that. And in general, thank you for coming on. It's been so interesting to hear about your story and how you think about the world. I'm so grateful that I've had a chance to connect with you and learn a little bit more about myself. That's super invaluable. And before we say goodbye to our listeners, how can people connect with you?
So you can find me at my website, sofiaadler.com, and also on Instagram at Sofia Adler with an underscore at the end. I spell my name with an F, Sofia. And I think those are the best places.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us, and we'll watch out for the stars.
Yes, please. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.